Good day to you, wherever you are. I'm continuing sharing with you some sutras from the Yoga Vasishtha. So for those of you who may not know who Vasishtha was or is, he is regarded as one of the 7 great Rishis of ancient India. A Rishi is a seer, not a person, a seer who looks upon the person, including its own person, as a process in non-local awareness. It is the non-changing factor in every changing experience. Vasishtha is one of the 7 greatest, according to Indian history, mythology, religion, spirituality, however you want to term it. One of the 7 Sapt Rishis, actually the Great Dipper, out there in the Milky Way galaxy, represents each one of the Rishis symbolically. So here's one story regarding Vasishtha. Rama, or Ram, in Indian spiritual lore, is considered an incarnation of God. Of course, symbolically, all of us are. But Ram is considered an avatar in the same way I say Jesus, or much later, much earlier than Jesus anyway, Buddha, and other great incarnations of divinity. Ram's father happens to be an emperor, a king who rules the entire land of what was then India, Ayodhya, the kingdom, and he sends his son, who's a boy, to the great seer Vasishtha to learn about the self. And as is customary in India, when Ram meets the great seer, the great guru, the great teacher, he bows and attempts to touch his feet, which is a sign of respect and devotion. And Vasishtha kind of draws back and says, hey, don't do that. You're God. And Ram's response is, I may be God, but I have forgotten. So with that starts the teaching, how to remember our divine self, journey to self. It's a journey without distance. It's a journey from here to here. It's a journey from the modifications or symbolic representations of the self, which are in time and which are experienced as sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts. It's a journey from those modifications or symbolic representations of self that we interpret as mind, body, and universe, but are essentially raw experiences of sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, which are modifications of the self. So everything that we experience is a symbolic representation of the self, here and now. Therefore, the journey to self is also from here to here. It's a journey without distance. And in these sutras that I'm sharing with you right now, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, sometimes, which is the basis of my new book, Living in the Light, Yoga for Self-Realization, but also the Yoga Sutras of Vasishtha, which are even more ancient. And later, perhaps, if you are so inclined, I can also share the sutras from Bhagavad Gita, which is a kind of a teaching from non-local self represented by Krishna, to local self, represented by Arjuna. And in most of these sharings, I will just directly read or the paraphrase. I will directly read the paraphrasing of translations that I've read decades ago. They're here in my notes. And sometimes I will offer a commentary if in the hope that it might help. But actually, if you hear these sentences, and they're not in logical order, these sutras, they're just revelations. They're that which was heard in the consciousness of Rishis, that which is heard. The Sanskrit word of that is Shruti, and that which is remembered. The shattered pieces of the soul remember their wholeness. That's called Smriti. That which is heard, Shruti, that which is remembered, Smriti. And sometimes just one of these revelations can hit you directly and move you to self-realization. That's the hope. So listen to these sutras. You might want to repeat them aloud. Occasionally, maybe I'll give a commentary. But let's see how this journey goes. Journey from here to here. Journey from symbolic representations of self to the source of all symbols, the true self, the true pure self, pure awareness, pure consciousness. Okay, so here we go. The universe is but a long dream. The ego sense and also the fancy that there are others are as real as dream objects. The sole reality is the infinite consciousness, which is omnipresent, pure, tranquil, omnipotent, and omniscient. Whatever is in the mind is like a city in the clouds. The emergence of this world is no more than thoughts manifesting themselves. All these worlds are no more than modifications of consciousness. In the infinite consciousness, we have created each other in our fancy. Dear ones, we are all individualized cosmic consciousness. When the intelligence is established in the conviction of its ethereal nature, the physical body is forgotten. Even as in youth, one forgets life as a fetus. What is the mystery of time? Whatever one thinks within oneself, in his own intelligence, that alone is experienced by him or her. To a suffering person, a night is an epoch, and a night of revelry passes like a moment. In a dream, a moment is no different than an epoch. But to the sage, to the seer, whose consciousness has overcome limitations, there is neither day nor night. As and when one turns away from the notions of I and the world, one is liberated. The notion of I am this is the soul bondage here. The notion of I am this or that is the symbol, is the soul bondage here. That's confusing the map for the territory, the menu for the meal, the symbol for the reality. Jiva, individual soul, is just a little agitation on the surface of the ocean of Brahman, or universal consciousness, or just a little movement of the flame of a candle in a windless room. When many candles are kindled from one another, it is the same flame that burns in all candles. Even so, the one Brahman appears to be many. When one contemplates the unreality, when one contemplates the unreality of this diversity, one is freed from sorrow. And last one from today, or maybe two more. Whatever the mind thinks of, that alone it sees. And now, journey to self. The self does not go, nor does it ever come. For space and time derive their meaning from consciousness alone. Where can the self go when all that is within it? If a jar or a pot is taken from one place to another, the space within it does not move from one place to another, for everything is forever in space. The space of consciousness, timeless, eternal, irreducible, fundamental, Chitakash. So if you like these, I will continue to share, not only from Yoga Vasishtha, but from Patanjali and from the Bhagavad Gita as well, and other texts. But give me some feedback.